Yo, 1212. So this is episode 2 of the BBoyTech Modular Journal. And so this time around, what I was going to talk about, I kind of gave you an overview of my case. And this is just, listen, this is just me sharing what I've learned and how my journey is going according to, me getting into modular. And what I want to talk about this episode is choosing modules. And, you could get on Modular Grid, modulargrid.net. And when you start building a modular and you learn about modulargrid.net, you'll be on there like 24/7. Sometimes just staring at your rack, make a new rack. Sometimes augmenting your rack, changing. I mean, it's crazy. Modular Grid has every module, virtually every module known to man on there. You can mix, match, push, pull, put everything. It'll give you a shopping list. You can kind of make your case according to how many HP, which is the width of the case, how many U, 3U, 6U, 9U, 12U, whatever it may be. As you may know, my case is actually a 6U, 104 HP. So, I started with a couple of modules, and since we're talking about choosing modules, I want to say that the first thing you must know is that this stuff is insane. It's absolutely addictive, and you will be sucked in quickly. I started with 2 modules, and I was planning on doing these every week, but I'll just do them as I can get around to them. I'll try to do them every week if I can. So let's see if maybe we could do this on the worst case scenario every other Saturday. So at any rate, said all that to say this: my case has exploded with modules, and I want to talk about today choosing modules. So when I first started doing this, when I first started saying I'm gonna get me my modular going, I thought that I knew what I wanted. I thought I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew a list of modules, and for the most part, some of that was right on point. So I organized it where the first row would be the stuff that I wanted first, and the second row would be like stuff that I'll just add on. So the first row would be essentials, a couple VCOs, braids, this thing because it's such a Swiss Army knife. I thought, my first 2 modules were chosen because they may be the only modules for a while. So it was actually 3. It was 4 actually. 4. There was the Deluxe Power by Synth, like I said in the last episode. There was also the Delay, DLY by Synth because I love delay, so I had to have that. Synth is always a dope spot to go. They're very personable. You can call them up and they'll tell you exactly what you need to know about their product. So I started there, Synth, and then I also had braids and Disdain. I chose braids and Disdain for pretty much one reason: the amount of punch that they pack in one single package. They have loads of functionality. They have, it's just a great starting point for the amount of functionality that you get and the features that you get. And, my idea with choosing modules was I knew what I wanted to do, and that's, for the most part, is I wanted more of a synth, less of an effects rack, but obviously a couple effects in there. But my biggest thing was that, hey, I have the A4, the Electron Analog A4, and I think that's a great complement or companion to any analog or modular system. So my whole idea when I was thinking about getting started with this is let's build something to complement or be a companion to my analog for desktop synthesizer, because it has the CV out, 4 CV out on the back, and I wanted to be able to control the stuff. Now, there's always some drawback when if you know anything about Electron, first and foremost that it's unlike anything you ever used if you've never used Electron. It has its own kind of personality, and the way they put things together in the OS and navigation and the sequencer and learning about all that stuff. So I've had it for a couple years now, I think, the A4, and so I know it pretty well. However, although I knew the capabilities, when it came down to modular, integration, I didn't quite know as much as I thought I knew, because when I started building, I started to run into things. And like I said, I knew exactly what I wanted my modular until I started actually building it. Now, here's the first gotcha. Number one, you can get on Modular Grid and know exactly what you want. At least you'll think so until you start getting stuff. I never thought about a buffered multiple. I didn't even know what that was. So let me tell you, a buffered multiple is a little device that takes one signal and multiplies it so that you can use it in several other devices. So say you have a CV from a keyboard controller and you want to take that one CV connection and you want to connect it into the like, say you got 3 different oscillators. And you say, yo, I want all these oscillators to do something similar. That same, whatever I'm playing, I want them all to sound, tune them to detune. Like I saw somebody use the STO, which I thought was dope. They had 3 STOs. STOs by Make Noise, they're $199, they're oscillator, and it's got like a sub, I think it's a sub oscillator, so it has a sine wave. That's as much as I know about it. But anyway, I saw somebody with 3 of those, and they took one CV cable, and they basically, what they were playing was going through, or the sequencer was playing was actually triggering all 3 of those. What you need to be able to do that is a buffered multiple. There's passive multiples, but at any rate, all it really does is it takes one CV or audio signal and it multiplies it by however many outputs it puts in. So you take that one CV, you put it in, and I'll show you in a sec. It's over there. I'll show you after we do this part. And it just basically multiplies that into separate things. So never even thought about that when I was building my modular grid piece. But that's okay. Once I started building that first row, I started to think about stuff that I'd never had a chance to think about. Like, whoa, I do not like the split cable. You need something like this, a splitter, when you're going to use your A4, the CV on the back of an A4 in order to control your modular. Now, what that is you have CV A and B, and then CV C and D. A and B are on one output out of the back of the modular, and you need this splitter to split them out. So this goes into, on the back of the A4. So this goes into the A4, and then these ends end up being A and B. And the same thing with the next CV output. This goes into the next CV output, which is C and D, and then this splits it out so that you have C and D separately. Now I had 2 of these on the back of my A4 and was trying to use it with, braids, and it was just so tedious to keep up with which one was which. Was this A? Was this C? Or was this D? I don't know. So I know some people could put tape on here and label it. I could have did that, but I wanted something a little more clean, a little more convenient, because this was also making it a little more messy around the A4. And the cool thing about the A4 is that if you use it with Ableton, you can use overbridge, and that means you can send audio over USB. So you could potentially have your modular going into your analog 4 and back out into your DAW so that you could record and track things over one cable. It's just power cable and the USB cable, which is where the audio travels over. So I didn't want all of these cables on the back of it. So it kind of messed up that aesthetic. At any rate, what I did is the next module, and this goes back to choosing modules. The next module I chose was the Greyscale Synapse. The Greyscale Synapse, I can't remember how much it costs, maybe $179, maybe $200, I don't know. But what it basically does is it allows you to take 2 audio cables out of the back of the analog 4 from the CV connections into the, and I'll show it, you'll probably see it right now overlaying, and it goes into the Synapse connector, and what that does inside your rack is it gives you A, B, C, and D, all 4 CVs and separate connectors with the 1/8 inch or 3.5 millimeter, whatever it is, connector, just like the rest of your patch cables in your modular. So that was huge for me. So when I talk about, knowing what you want to do, and that's how you kind of go about choosing your modules. That's what I did. I would recommend that for you if you are thinking about getting into this. So I knew that I wanted to build a companion for my A4, and so that's what I did. I asked myself, what do you want to do? And I thought, I'd like to have an alternative voice or 2 or 3 or whatever, but an alternative oscillator for my analog 4 that I could control with the analog 4, kind of integrate that into my DAW using the existing workflow that I already use with the analog 4 and overbridge, right? So that's what I did. So I built my modular around that. You should ask yourself these couple questions. What do I want to do? Additional voice for your synth? You want to do an effects rack? You want to do a traditional synth type of thing where you have a complete voice of stuff. So you have your oscillator, you have your filter, your envelope, your amp, your so forth and so on. Maybe even effect in there. So you want that kind of traditional layout and stuff, because then that's going to inform what you actually need to go out and purchase and start looking at. Or do you want to be experimental and build an effects rack or something? I don't know. So like I said, I knew what I wanted to do, and that's why I started choosing what I chose. Now, like I said, the reason I chose what I chose was because I wanted a companion for the A4. Now, I got the first couple of modules, and then I realized, okay, I'm looking at my rack right now. I started thinking like the Sting is the everything module, and I need that. But then the other thing I didn't really think of is using blocks. And because I've recently migrated from MPC and the MPC software to Ableton Live and Push 2, I started, now I can finally use blocks. I wasn't able to use blocks in the MPC software. If you can, God bless you, because every time I opened up blocks, Native Instruments Reactor blocks in MPC software, no matter what version, it crashed. And so I was never able to use that. Now that I'm on Ableton and I'm building my modular, it's like, it's kismet. So that just kind of all goes along together. There's some updates coming from Native Instruments blocks that will allow a lot of integration. So then that was the other thing I started thinking, I got all these voices as I start building, and I can use modulation and clock and stuff like that from blocks and send that to my modular for usage. So like I don't have to have all these extra LFOs. I don't have to have all these extra clocks and all that stuff. Truthfully, this is Eurocrack. You will be a Eurocrack addict, and so you're going to end up with modules that you think, I don't need to buy that anyway. So anyway, long story short, I got a couple like LFOs, modulation, pieces and clocks. But at any rate, I also wanted to integrate blocks from the DAW, right? Native Instrument blocks. I wanted to integrate that with my DAW. So I had to go and get the ES3. That's the Expert Sleepers ES3. Now the ES3 is dope for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons it's dope is, and this is the main feature, it uses ADAT light pipe wire. If you don't have a DC coupled audio interface, like myself, I have a Fireface 400, an RME Fireface 400, and the only DC coupled interface or out on it was the headphones. Unfortunately, I've had this thing since early 2000s, maybe 2004, 2005, and not unfortunately, it's done me well. It's a great device, but my headphone jack is broken, so the only DC coupled output on my interface that I could use to send CV out of is broken. So my alternative was to buy the ES3, Expert Sleepers ES3. Go out and check out Expert Sleepers because they are making some of the best utilities for the integration to and from modular and your DAW. So at any rate, I got the ES3. This one uses ADAT connection. That ADAT connection goes to the back of my RME 400. The input of the ADAT connection is light pipe. So it's sending 8 channels of audio and or CV from the DAW into the ES3, which basically says now you have 8 patch points inside your DAW that you can use as CV. So you can send modulation or send whatever it is out of the DAW into the ES3 via light pipe, and take those and start to control other components of your DAW. So then now you got all of these things going on. Right now I have the ES3, the A4, and my modular, and it's all about integration. So that's why I say when you think about what you want, really think about what you plan to do, because that's more important than anything. You don't want to go out and just start buying stuff. Now, what you probably find, like I said, is when you build stuff on modular grid, if you're not giving thought to what you really want to do, once you buy your first couple modules, you'll start to think like, oh crap, I didn't even think I need a buff mult. I didn't even think that I need like an extra VCA or a mixer, or you know what I mean? Like all those things, that ain't the fun stuff. Utilities, you'll want to make sure you think about the utilities. One thing I want to warn about is analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis, it's a common term. Basically, you ever wanted to buy a light bulb and you go to the store and you go into the hardware store and it's an aisle. In this aisle, there's light bulbs. The whole aisle, there's light bulbs. You need a light bulb, and the whole aisle is like hundreds of different types of light bulbs. Analysis paralysis. You can stand there for an hour just trying to figure out exactly what you need. You need the daylight, you need the soft, you don't like the yellow thing, you want the energy saver. That's the way it is with choosing modular, right? So make sure you do your research. Don't get too veered off course when you're trying to choose your modules, because you will get caught up in analysis paralysis, or you will get caught up into a situation where you meant to have a 6U and now you got a 9U and you're almost finished, right? That's how quick it can spiral out of control. So at any rate, just understand that, and let me just show you how my rack has grown. Now mind you, this may be shocking because the first episode there was only a couple modules there. So now there's a few more modules and even an extra row. So now I'm up to 9U, and I have a couple of things on pre-order, and I'm looking forward to sharing that stuff with you and sharing the stuff that I've learned. So let's take a look at the rack. All right, so this is BBoyTech. You're watching BBoyTech's Modular Journal. Thanks for joining. I'll try to have another one of these for you either next week or the following week. And at that point, let's see what we got planned for episode 3. I don't know. Let's play it by ear. So yeah, thanks for joining. This is BBoyTech. Be sure to subscribe. Like me on Facebook, BBoyTech Report, and Beat People on Facebook. Also follow on Twitter, The Beat People and BBoyTech Report, and be sure to come back and subscribe. We'll have a lot more for you. We've got podcasts for beat people coming up, and hip hop and beat maker cats that may not really dig or may not understand modular, be sure to hit me up with comments and questions, or DM me or whatever, anything you might want me to cover on modular that as I learn I'll share. But maybe you got questions, I'll try to hit some of your questions as we go through this. Thanks for joining. This is another episode of BBoyTech Modular Journal, episode 2. Stay tuned for 3. Peace.